Hello, and welcome to this week's reading update. I am Zach LaGreca, your host of the Zach LaGreca YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, I am a reader of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. I mostly post over on TikTok, but apparently TikTok is going to be banned. There was a bill passed by Congress earlier in the year, and just as of today when I'm recording this, the federal courts decided that bill is going to be upheld, and it sounds like TikTok might be gone in like mid-January, which is coming up quickly. So I've decided I need to stop neglecting my home over here on YouTube. So I'm going to be posting content more often here about what I'm reading mostly. So if you like fantasy and sci-fi and horror, if you like reading type stuff, then I would love to have you along. Subscribing would be awesome. Do whatever you want though. I'm not your mom. So let's jump into a quick reading recap of what I recently finished. I only finished 2 books in November. Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. I'm in the middle of a Stormlight reread in preparation for book 5, which just came out as of this recording. Going through this again because it's been a while since I've read it and I want the full experience. I want to be able to make all those connections, have that emotional impact. And Oathbringer is even better on a reread, in my opinion. I was really surprised at how much more I liked this. The first time I read through the series, Oathbringer was my least favorite. And I remember finding the pacing a little bit slow. I just remember being a little bit bored at certain points, and for the life of me, I don't know why. Because on this reread, I was captivated from beginning to end. There are some really important climactic character moments that happen in this book. I got a little choked up a couple of times at the end of this one. So really good. Excited to be continuing on to Rhythm of War, and I'm a little bit behind. The goal is to be done so that on Wind and Truth Day, which is the day of this recording, I could just jump right in. But I'm not quite there yet. I'll be there soon enough. The other book that I finished in November is Human Acts by Han Kang. She is a South Korean author who recently won the Nobel Prize in Literature for her other novel, The Vegetarian, which I have not read. But this was really good, but it was a hard read. It's gut-wrenching. This is about the Gwangju uprising that took place in 1980 in South Korea, where thousands of people protested the South Korean government, which at the time was a dictatorial regime. Hundreds of people were killed in this massacre, many of them students or children. Thousands were injured. It was this horrific event of the government using oppressive, violent force on its own citizens who were peacefully protesting. Just a heartbreaking and really dark read. This is a fictionalized account of multiple people involved with this, from victims to bereaved family members of victims, who are all trying to come to terms and understand this horrific thing that has happened. So again, this was very hard to read, very gut-wrenching, but it was moving, and it was very human, and I felt a lot of empathy for this. This makes you think about the human spirit and the human condition in enduring under really awful circumstances where your control and your power is taken from you. A good read, I think, in the day and age we live in, where certain trends are on the rise for some of these like oppressive or dictatorial behaviors in some governments. This is the type of thing that can help you be thinking about what the effects of these types of things can be. So this was good. I recommend it if you think you're able to stomach that. I also started Shadow of the Gods last month by John Gwynne, which is the first in the Bloodsworn trilogy. And the conclusion to this trilogy just came out. I think it was actually in October that came out. So I thought to myself, I need to finally just buckle down and read this because everyone's excited about it. Everyone loves it. Also, these covers. I mean, look at that. Giant dragon, tiny little knight, always an exciting thing. So yeah, I started this. I'm about 3/4 of the way through now, and I absolutely am enjoying this. The Viking or Norse setting is really evocative and interesting and gives it a bit of a refreshing feel compared to some of the other fantasy books that I've been reading lately. And I love Orca. She's my favorite character in this. I can't wait to see where things go. I'll be finishing this month for sure. I'm also halfway through Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which is a literary fiction novel, and this is a retelling of David Copperfield, a very loose retelling of David Copperfield, set in the American South in the 1990s, and it follows a kid whose name is technically Damon, but he goes by Demon, and he grows up the son of a single mom who are facing poverty. They face a lot of other like addiction and other problems in their family, which make life very difficult. This is kind of a tough read too. It's a kid who is neglected by basically everyone in his life, from his parents and parental figures to the government and the institutions that are supposed to help care for kids who are in situations like these and just utterly fail to do so. And I think this highlights basically kids who do fall through the cracks in the system and the types of things they have to deal with. Again, a tough read. So far, not quite as gratuitous as I thought it was going to be. Like, I think of something like A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, which is another really tough read, which some people have equated to like Misery. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, so I'm going to say Misery Corn. And I'm not sure I would quite go that far with A Little Life, but A Little Life was too much for me, I would say. This has a lot of hard things to read, a lot of darkness, but it doesn't feel quite as constant. And there has been a few more glimmers of hope so far, but I'm only halfway through. I imagine there are going to be a lot of tough things to read yet. So hope to finish this in December as well. It's pretty good, but it's kind of back burner because Stormlight is my priority. All right, and getting into December, just a couple of days ago, I finished Dawn Shard, which is the second Stormlight novella. Chronologically, this is supposed to take place between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. And so before going into Rhythm of War, I read this. And even though I'm rereading the main series, this is the first time that I've read the novellas. The first novella, Edge Dancer, I was a bit mixed on. Being in Lift's perspective for that long was kind of tough. But Dawn Shard I liked a lot more. You follow Rysn, who's one of the interlude characters from the first couple of books, and Lopin, or the Lopin, I should say, who is one of Kaladin's men. And they're going on this seafaring expedition to a lost city, like out in the ocean, to discover some important things. I don't want to get too much into the plot, but if you like the lost city or expedition type tropes, you're going to like this. And if you like those two characters I mentioned, this was really good. It's worth reading. And that brings me to Rhythm of War. So I've just started this the other day. I'm barely into it. I'm like 90 pages in, and that's what that looks like. So these books are massive. I'm loving it. The beginning to Rhythm of War is really cool. I love the prologue. This might be my favorite prologue of the first 4 books. I don't want to say what happens or anything, but it's a really cool perspective, and we get some character interactions that I really enjoyed. And then there's some really awesome moments early on, some cool fight scenes. It's just right off the bat. It's great. I'm trying to savor my Stormlight experience. I'm trying to enjoy the journey before destination, but I also kind of want to hurry through this because I just got my copy of Wind and Truth today. Look at how beautiful this is. This is also massive. I believe this is Sanderson's longest book yet, even longer than Rhythm of War. I want to open it and look through it, but I also don't want to spoil myself. So anyway, I want to get to this soon, but I got to get through Rhythm of War first. One other book I forgot to mention that I just started on audio is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman. I've been hearing a lot of good things about this. It's all over BookTube and Book Talk. And this is a lit RPG book. I've never read anything in the lit RPG genre, and so I wasn't sure if it was going to be for me. Like, it sounded like something that, I don't know, for whatever reason, I thought it wasn't going to click with me, and maybe it won't for other stories, but I'm pretty invested already in Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm like, I don't know, an hour and a half into it. It's really funny right off the bat. The premise is the world is like invaded by aliens and turned into a giant dungeon, and the survivors have to like go through the levels of this dungeon and fight and try and survive. And it's all for like an alien TV show. So great premise, a lot of fun. Matt Dinneman's a good writer. Like he's funny. And that's kind of the make or break for me so far, is that if this wasn't legitimately amusing, I probably wouldn't be as invested, but it's made me laugh a few times. If you've played any video games, there's a lot of jokes related to that are pretty good. There's a lot of jokes too at the expense of like social media and our online cultures. Really fun so far. And the audiobook narrator, I think it's Jeff Hayes. He does a phenomenal job at the character voices. He does some really fun sound effects for like more robotic voices. It's good. So I would say if you want to read Dungeon Crawler Carl, the audiobook is outstanding so far. Excited to see how the story progresses. So those are all of my reading updates. On the video games front, I finished Zelda Tears of the Kingdom last month. That game is a masterpiece. I bought it and I started it back in 2023 when it came out. And then I put it on pause. There's a lot of amazing games that came out last year. And I finally got back to it back in like August or September, and I resumed, and I just got swept away. I spent a lot of November playing Tears of the Kingdom. And this game's interesting because I think Breath of the Wild was such a masterpiece, and it sort of redefined the exploration, like open world genre. So many games have started to take inspiration from various elements, from being able to go to and climb anything you can see, to the glider aspect where you can like go up high and then just glide down, and just making traversal a breeze and discoverability just so much fun. I wasn't sure how Tears of the Kingdom could top a game like that. That game felt basically perfect to me. I know people have complaints like the durability system of the weapons, blah, blah, blah. I never found those things to be much of an issue, and I felt like the sum experience of Breath of the Wild was perfect enough for me. After having completed Tears of the Kingdom, I think that game is actually somehow better. Like if Breath of the Wild is a 10 out of 10 for me, Tears of the Kingdom is a 12 out of 10. And I didn't feel that way for the first half. But as things progressed, like the new mechanics that were introduced in that game and the kind of layers of like you have the sky islands and then the surface, and you're kind of going between these altitudes seamlessly on a Switch, which is a potato of a device. It's really impressive technically, but also it's a joy to explore. There's a lot of areas to explore that are not in the original game and that are totally different, but they also kind of reshape the surface of Hyrule. And so you get a very different experience. And I was really impressed with the narrative. The story of Tears of the Kingdom is quite interesting and told a lot more compellingly than the story in Breath of the Wild. So I think Tears of the Kingdom is one of the best games ever made, one of the best fantasy games for sure as well. I loved playing it. I'm kind of sad it's over. Yeah, I think after this, I've started dabbling with Metaphor ReFantazio is like my next video game that I might play. I'm also playing Nine Souls on my Steam Deck, so I'm not as invested in gaming at the moment now that I'm trying to make my way through Stormlight and get to Wind and Truth, but I'll still be chipping away at those games throughout the rest of December. On the TV and movie front, a quick shout out that I got a code to watch Elevation from the company that movie was produced by, and I'm forgetting the name of the actor who's in it. He's in some of the Marvel movies. I'll put a picture. There's a couple of well-known actors in this movie, so I was kind of excited. I've never gotten a code to watch like a premiere movie that is currently in theaters so that I can give a review, and I regret to say that it was really bad. I didn't like it at all. It was terrible. The acting, they tried to do what they could, but the script wasn't very good in my opinion. The editing was really weird. It felt like it was phoned in. It felt like this was done because they had a script and they're trying to put something out. Like this felt like the type of movie that was created for a tax break or, something like that. It just was not a good film. I don't recommend it, unfortunately. Finally, ending on a high note, I'm in the middle of Arcane Season 2. If you haven't watched Arcane, you absolutely should. The first season is a masterpiece. It's one of the best pieces of fantasy media in like the past decade, in my opinion. It's really that good. The animation is incredible, the storytelling is incredible, the character work, from the voiceovers to the dialogue, just the overall writing of this series is so good. It's fantasy, it's a little steampunk. It's set in the League of Legends world, which I don't have any experience with. It doesn't matter. You don't need to know about League of Legends. Just watch Arcane. You're going to love it. And season 2 so far is off to a crazy start. It's really good. I can't wait to finish it, but I'm also sad to finish it because this is the last season of Arcane that we're going to get. And I kind of wish we would have at least gotten 3. But in this day and age, I'm happy that we are going to get a conclusion to this series instead of it just being canceled in the middle. It's been a good month for stuff, from Arcane to Stormlight. I'm excited to continue on these things, and I will be back in the next week or two with another update of what I've been reading, what I've been playing. I appreciate you tuning in. So again, like and subscribe if you're new here and you want to hear my updates on reading and all of that. If not, well, that's fine too, I guess. I also forgot to show you my Lightweaver shirt that I got. I took the Sanderson quiz for which order of Knights Radiant am I, and I got Lightweaver. So that's pretty cool.